Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the Build Room, and in this week's episode, we are dealing with some busted bumper plastics, or actually in my case, a sill cover for my F20 BMW. So we are going to be learning how to plasti-weld. Now, I've never done it before. It's sure to go pear-shaped, so stick around and check it out. All right, so this is the offending item. As I said, this is the passenger side sill cover off an F20 125i, and it has a fairly large bit of damage here. There's a gouge all the way through, that crack goes all the way through, and it does so up here as well. If we look at it from the back, you can see just how bad that is. Now, if I try and, fill this up with bog or something like that, even a flexible filler, it is highly likely the first time, or even trying to fit that to the car potentially, any sort of movement, it's going to crack, and it is not going to be a long-term repair. So we're going to move over the bench here, where we have a King Chrome plastic welding kit and a butane powered soldering iron that this attaches to. Now, this wasn't that cheap. This is about 90 bucks, but you can get cheaper ones out there. I just didn't have the time. The kit itself, it doesn't look like a lot. It's just really an end for the soldering iron torch, some plastics of probably polypropylene and ABS and stuff like that, a brush, and so there's not a lot to this, right? But I was working on a weekend. I need this stuff. This is pretty much all I could get. You can probably get something from Alibaba or eBay or Amazon or whatever, way cheaper. And I just got some butane just to make sure that this is filled. I don't know if it comes with any. So let's bust this out and see what we're looking at. All right, so the stand, the torch itself, and then we've got a couple of nozzles, some soldering wire, and of course a sponge that we can wet and clean the tip in. When soldering, it's really important that you keep your tip clean. In terms of this blister pack, I have to cut that open. All right, so we've got what looks like some stainless steel reinforcing mesh, and this is one of the main things that I thought I would need. I mean, I've seen people melt cable ties in with a torch and use that to weld plastic, but I needed something to reinforce, and hopefully this mesh is going to be that structural goodness. There's our two tips for the torch, screwdriver to change them over. Man, King Chrome give you everything, because if you're welding plastics at home, you might not be the guy that has a screwdriver in a small Phillips head. Definitely need to sell you one of those. Some sort of knurled metal rod, and here are our materials. So this one is ABS, this one is PP, which is probably polypropylene, and this one is PS. So that's actually polystyrene, so not the type of polystyrene you would find in packing peanuts. But the main thing is you've got to get the right material here to fix whatever is broken. So we're going to have to figure out what those side sills are made of, and then use the right one for that. Color doesn't really matter, I don't think, but certainly making sure that it is a compatible plastic will be important. Yeah, and just this little brush, which I'm assuming is just to scratch up surfaces and key them so that the plastic will melt in and hold well, especially around gauze and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and I actually missed one of these. There's polyethylene here as well, so there's actually 4 types of plastic. Now, I am pretty sure that the bumpers on the BMW or the side skirts will be either polypropylene or a very similar material that manufacturers use for bumpers, which is TPU, I think it is. But yeah, I'm gonna try polypropylene. There is a test that you can do to see what plastics you've got in your car, but you've basically got to melt some of the plastic, slice a piece off and melt it and all that sort of thing. So I really can't be bothered with that. We're just going to try that and send it. So for now, we have to swap over the head of the torch. I think that comes out. Get some gas into this thing. Okay, we can see we got fluid in there. We got a little air bubble going about the place. And then with a full load of gas, I think we just hold down this lock button, and there we go. And then the one underneath it is a continuous running lockout. So we turn that on as well. And if we can see, this might be easy without the lights. All right, you can see in there it's starting to glow hot. We have a hot tip. All right, so I'll turn that off, and we'll get it on the stand. And now we need to deal with our stainless steel mesh. All right, so there's 3 bits of screen in there. And you're supposed to have a reasonable amount of overlap, obviously. If you've got a crack down it, you don't want to just have a thin piece. So I'm going to go probably half thickness on this, try and put that in. Maybe a little less than half. All right, so yeah, just about that thick. And now we'll take it over the bumper and we'll see if we can start pushing this stuff into it. All right, so I reckon that's pretty well sized. I'm hoping this will be strong enough. It moves around a bit at the moment, but it'll get stronger as we weld it in, I guess. I'm just gonna scuff up and clean out anything around this. Hopefully it'll give it a decent bonding surface. I mean, you're gonna melt the plastics together anyway, but just at least make sure there's nothing in that crack or anything like that. And the gap here is, this is solid, and there is a tear there and a tear there. So what I'm going to try and do is, I'm not going to try and cover both in that. I'll move this down and we'll reinforce that whole section. And then we'll do a bit more in here. And also, this corner is also broken. So I'll leave that one to last. I think that'll be the hardest. I want to tie those 2 back together. So we'll start here, work our way down. And one of the other things we have to do here is to preheat the plastic to make this a quicker process, a little bit easier. Right now, we're at 21 degrees. The melting point for this plastic, I think, is around the 120 to 140 mark Celsius. So I'm not sure how hot we'll get it with just a heat gun, but we'll see how we go. All right, that's 115 degrees, so getting pretty warm. And what I'm hoping I can do with this is just to adjust some of this plastic. It's just kind of popped above it and I couldn't get it in. Oh yeah, that's pretty soft actually, that's good. There we go, I can just flatten it out a bit. Oh. All right, so I'll stop covering that with my hand, but you can see I can just move that back around a little bit now and that'll get that flat. Same as welding metal, if I have these at different heights and I weld them together, when I try and fill it from the back or sand it down, I'm gonna really make this thin, so keep it at the same level. All right, that's not too bad. We'll get the torch heating now. I'll have to re-warm this again when I've done that, but yeah, we'll get this warming up and then we will put the mesh in. All right, gloves on now. Get that in place. All right, the 2 things I should have said here is you want to make sure you're in a ventilated area. Obviously, melting plastics are bad juju for the respiratory system. And I'm just going to start on one edge here. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Get it nicely melted in. Try and make sure I don't take too much plastic out of this. All right, so you can see there, it's pretty easy. We're just heating it up and pushing it into the plastic as we go. So I'm just gonna keep working my way down here, making sure that I get it nice and deep as I can. And then if I feel like it's getting light on the back here, I might even put some filler over the top as well, provided it's gonna melt in right. All right, so that's had some time to cool down. Still a little bit warm, but the mesh is in there. I found the best way to do it was basically to put the torch flat and then just tilt the nose in so that you're pushing the mesh into it so that it got, you know, a little bit of penetration through the plastic. And then if I was cleaning up, like wiping these areas here, I was making sure that I didn't push down too hard. Otherwise, you're just gonna push down and you're gonna screed this thing off at the top of the mesh. And I wanted there to be plastic over the mesh. So a light drag got us to where we are now. The only issues that I think I've got now, if I turn this over, it may be difficult to see, or maybe not, no. We've got a high spot here. So put too much heat into it and this is bubbled up. It's not a problem because it's pretty junk, but what I'm gonna do is just strip some of the paint off here, and then I will push that back down, heat it up, push it back down, get this nice and flat, and that should mean that the mesh is in there. And then any leftover gaps in here, it doesn't look like there's gonna be any, but if there were any gaps left in this, then we could use that filler rod. So yeah, I'll strip the paint off this and we'll see how we go. Heat gun. She's seeing the mesh from this side, so definitely push the mesh too low, but we'll just be a little bit more careful this time. So let that cool down a little bit, let the mesh harden up into it basically, and then I'll come back over the top, smooth it out. I might try a bit of filling here. All right, so we're sitting a little bit proud here, but I have built up some material. I think we're gonna be pretty good. I won't know for sure until I start sanding this down and see if we can get the line through here clean. But worst case scenario, we will just heat it up and push it in some more. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty well there. It does feel very strong, still a bit warm, but you know, I want it to be able to flex and move about. So yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm gonna put some mesh in this end and in this corner here. And then once that's all set in place, then we'll sand this back and see where we're at. So I think we're pretty much done with the welding. I've put some extra material in through here. It's sitting proud at the moment. That's fine. We'll sand that back. Similarly, this is proud as well. So on the back, I put that second piece in here, and then I put mesh upright in the corners here. And I just taped this closed to close up the gap to start with, soldered on one edge, and then I waited for it to cool so that it got its rigidity back. And then I pulled it across and soldered it in here to hold it in place, and then flipped it over and closed up the gaps here. And then once I was happy with the shape of it, I put some extra plastic in here just to close it up and reinforce it a little bit. And to be honest, if I'm trying to bend this and flex it, it pretty much moves the least in here. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if we get this on the right angle, the way this has been hit, it's actually got a shallow area here. So there's a dip as we go into this corner. That was already there. I haven't created that, not like that one. So yeah, it was already there. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna sand this back and see how we go. I'm only gonna sand back as much as I need in this area and then a little bit around here so that I can fill all this and fill that with some flexible filler and get it flat. Before I do that though, I'm gonna try in this area here to heat it up on the back, just with the heat gun. And then as it's pliable, if I push my thumb in here, I should be able to straighten that out a reasonable amount so that I have very little filler up here at all. So yeah, let's try that out and see how we go on that one. All right, so that's smoothed that out quite nicely. All right, there we go. So this actually came out really quite well. There's very little low spot through there. There is a low through here, which was sort of what I was expecting. And this has come down quite a lot. I think a little skim of filler over this and we'll be good. This bit, look, I can fill that. I'm just not 100% sure. What I'm gonna do is heat it up again and just see if I can push it with my thumb like I did for this bit, just to bend this back out a bit, because the less filler, the better with this stuff. So let's just try that. All right, man, it's come out really nice. So the dark bits here and here That is the additional plastic that I welded in, the polypropylene. Yeah, it's a slightly different color, but it has melted in to the other plastic. So, you know, there's not like a big lip there or anything. So you'll notice in that video, I sanded all through here and it all is really, really good. Heating this up and popping it out worked really well. You know, there's really not a lot of drop there at all. I could keep going with this and filling it with more plastic, but I actually have some bumper filler, which can probably take up the last little, possibly maybe a millimeter, less than a millimeter of difference here. And then we should have a completed repair. So yeah, let's get some filler on this and see how it'll look. All right, man, that came up amazing. There's very little filler through here. You can see the lighter gray, that's a little bit of the filler. But man, that is like 90% there, just as it is. And this is just the first pass, 120 grit. There's no low spots all through here. And you know, this is pretty decent too. It doesn't look so neat because you've got different pieces showing, and if you look there is a tiny little bit of stainless wire showing, so that's just starting to get down to the mesh, but there's actually pretty thickness there as well. So this is obviously a bit where I pushed the wire a little bit too deep, but to be honest, there's plenty more repairs to do to this stuff. So it's looking great on the front side, on the back side. This is how we ended up. You know, it doesn't look neat, but it doesn't need to look neat. And I don't intend to sort of grind this back and tidy it up. It's just got to be flat enough to fit back on the car, which I'm pretty sure it is. So that is pretty much where we are leaving this repair today. So yeah, this was actually part of another episode. So we cut down an episode to make it shorter, and I thought people might just be interested in learning plastic repairs on their own. But if you are interested in the patent process, you can go back and watch last week's episode and it's in that one. But yeah, that is where we're gonna leave it for today. So standard stuff. If you're new to the channel, I'll put the full Violet Crumbles series just up here, and I'll put some other cool content just down there. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Build Room. Bye for now.